It's not every day that a ribbon-cutting ceremony in the Democratic Republic of Congo attracts international media attention. Normally, Congo flies under the radar, we might say, even though it's actually one of the biggest countries in the world. It's bigger than Mexico, believe it or not. But a couple of years ago, this incredible footage from the capital of Congo was picked up by Western media. It's from the grand opening of a footbridge that was apparently a big deal for the locals. And here's how it worked out. I don't know, was the ribbon holding up the bridge? I mean, why did it collapse the second they cut the ribbon? I don't get it. But, it's a little like the collapse of that bridge in Baltimore, except in this case, a barge, didn't need to hit anything. All they had to do was cut the ribbon and stand on the bridge, and the whole thing came crashing down on them. Now, fortunately, nobody was hurt in that incident. It got a few laughs on social media. Everybody moved on. But in retrospect, the collapse of that footbridge in Congo's capital was more than just a meme on the internet. It was a practical manifestation of something that Western academics now want to import into this country. There is a concerted effort underway in universities all over the world to, quote, decolonize mathematics, engineering, and science in general. It's been generations since Congo was under Belgian rule, so presumably that footbridge is a great example of decolonized engineering. That's what it looks like when it's decolonized. And now the West wants to emulate that. I first noticed this trend when I came across a recent article from Australian National University, which according to Wikipedia is supposedly an impressive institution. And the gist is that a professor in Australia named Rowena Ball is trying to get the concept of indigenous mathematics off the ground because Aboriginal people struggle with European mathematics, quote unquote, otherwise known as real mathematics. The article includes this remarkable line, quote, numbers and arithmetic and accounting often are of secondary importance in indigenous mathematics. Now, that seems to make as much sense as saying that words are of secondary importance in linguistics or that maps are of secondary importance in the science of cartography. I mean, how can you have mathematics without numbers and arithmetic exactly? Well, read on and Professor Ball will tell you, quote, mathematics is primarily the science of patterns and recognizing and classifying those patterns. One interesting example that we're currently investigating is the use of chiral symmetry to engineer a long-distance smoke signaling technology in real time. If you light an incense stick, you'll see the twin counter-rotating vortices that emanate. These are a chiral pair, meaning they are non-superimposable mirror images of each other. The article goes on to explain, quote, a memoir by Alice Duncan Kemp, who grew up on a cattle station in the early 1900s, vividly describes the signaling procedure in which husband and wife expert team Bogey and Marianne selected and pulsed the smoke waves with a left-to-right curl to signal white men instead of the more usual right-to-left spiral. To create and understand these signals, you have to be a skilled practical mathematician, Professor Ball says. Well, it's not hard to see what's being conflated here. Yes, it's possible to argue that the act of lighting the incense stick and producing counter-rotating vortices does, in a way, implicate mathematics and especially geometry, as does literally everything that happens in the physical world. I mean, it's like saying LeBron James is a skilled mathematician because his three-pointers make nice parabolas. Yeah, he's not thinking in his head about the parabolic equation when he's playing. He doesn't even know what that is, probably. Now, in the case that Professor Ball is talking about, there's nothing really mathematical in any traditional sense about generating smoke signals. And frankly, depending on the size of the vocabulary of the signaling system, it's probably something you could train apes to do, even though they have no understanding of language, much less math. I mean, it's like saying that a child successfully flying a kite is doing math. I mean, it's nonsense. You might as well say that by walking across the room, you are engaged in mathematics. Now, these are very simple sort of actions and phenomena we're talking about. Throwing a basketball, lighting an incense stick. It's not rocket science. Your brain is doing complex equations when you shoot a basketball, sure, or even when you walk across the room. And because our mathematics is so sophisticated and precise, we can describe the physical phenomenon to a great degree of sophistication and precision. But that's only because our mathematics can penetrate reality to that degree. You don't have to wonder how precise African folk math or whatever can get in describing that stuff. To say nothing of the math and mathematical physics required to build stuff like nuclear reactors and rocket engines and computers and all that. That stuff absolutely requires not just numbers, but advanced and highly abstract theories that the people that are doing this are consciously engaged in. But highly abstract theories are out of style now, and not just in Australia. Brain-dead oversimplification is the name of the game. So here, for example, is a recent TEDx talk delivered by a woman who teaches mathematics in Canada. She's also a vice principal in the Ottawa School District. Listen to her communicate her understanding of what mathematics is all about.
Before I begin, I am hoping you will do a little bit of math with me. If you are willing, raise your hand if you have ever said or heard someone say one of these things. I am not a math person. I can't do math, or even, I hate math. Did you know that if you made it on time today, or even made a cup of coffee, chose what to wear, you were doing math, even though you didn't think about it that way? My talk today is about how mathematics has become, for me, an enriching opportunity to connect with others and the world in ways my high school calculus class never really afforded.
Well, I guess there's some good news here. I mean, I must be a genius mathematician myself because I made coffee and I picked out my own clothes this morning. Now, this will come as news to all of my grade school math teachers who graded my math exams in a manner that conveyed a certain lack of faith in my mathematical prowess. But if only they'd known that I already passed the math test just by getting dressed before I came to school. And if only I'd been as brain damaged as academic elites are today, then maybe I would have thought to make that argument myself in my own defense. Anyway, a little over a year ago, there was an in-depth column in The Spectator about this movement to discredit and undermine serious academic disciplines, especially math. It was written by John Armstrong, who teaches at King's College London and previously taught at Oxford. He's an actual mathematician with actual credentials, and he summed up the problem with this whole push to decolonize math pretty simply. He said, quote, "The fact is that colonialism is irrelevant to the validity of mathematics. The Mayan civilization was doing sophisticated mathematics in the Americas long before Christopher Columbus arrived on the continent. The digits 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 we use today were first written in India and inspired by Chinese mathematics. They were popularized by Persian and Arab mathematicians and then made their way to Europe via the Moors' conquest of southern Spain. Admittedly, the Moors' conquest of Spain was a form of colonialism, but apparently not the type of colonialism we are meant to be interested in." So what do these activists mean when they say they want to decolonize math, given that the entire idea of decolonizing math is completely incoherent? The Arabs were colonizers too. And why are Australians, of all people, so interested in promoting this idea? Well, one possibility is that by some estimates, as the Twitter account IO points out, Aboriginal Australians happen to have, on average, the second lowest IQ out of any demographic group on the planet. Now, that's the sort of thing that's supposed to be unsayable, but it's impossible to talk about certain groups struggling academically without bringing up the intellectual elephant in the room. I mean, there might be a reason why there aren't many Aboriginals working at NASA, let's say. And it's an important point because it means that decolonization, practically speaking, entails dumbing down these subjects or destroying them altogether. The cost of living has already increased 17% this year and continues to rise despite interest rate controls. As our national debt skyrockets, you need to be confident in the financial services companies you work with, especially regarding your money and your... Mainly we see with this decolonization agenda the embarrassment that liberal Westerners feel about the fact that their ancestors were far more advanced in just about every way and by every available measure than the native people they conquered. The liberal Westerners constantly looking for ways to even out the score. And we're seeing that more and more in this country as well. The once respected Nature magazine, for example, recently published an editorial with no byline that reads, quote, "Why we have nothing to fear from the decolonization of mathematics." And what's amazing is that if you read the whole editorial, you won't actually find a definition of what decolonization means in this context. You won't find anything close to a definition, actually. The most you'll discover is that according to Nature, decolonization, quote, "shows that the roots of discovery and invention are shared between many world cultures, which can be particularly empowering to people from historically marginalized groups. Decolonizing science is the antidote to exceptionalism, the idea that any single culture or civilization possessed special abilities in advancing science." But as we just established, some cultures and civilizations did indeed advance science and mathematics more than others. I mean, there were some cultures and civilizations that didn't advance it at all because they didn't even have the concepts. And then there were others that did quite a bit to advance it, and some of those were colonizers, and some of those colonizers were not white. And regardless, none of this has anything to do with mathematics. I mean, maybe you can argue that this belongs in some elective history course somewhere, but it has no place affecting courses on the fundamentals of mathematics, which is exactly what's happening in this country. Pittsburgh Public Schools, for example, recently announced a plan to make mathematics instruction more equitable